Today on Inquirer. Sandigan Bayan junks forfeiture cases versus late ex-Chief Justice Renato Corona. Reported death toll due to severe tropical storm Paeng reaches 150. The Alliance of Concerned Teachers blasts DepEd for allowing the optional use of face masks inside schools. And North Korea fires 3 ballistic missiles. Good evening. For today's top story, the Sandigan Bayan junks the forfeiture cases filed against late former Chief Justice Renato Corona in relation to his assets that were not declared in his statements of assets, liabilities, and net worth. Zacarian Sarao has the full report live. Zach?
Yes, Bay, Sandigan Bayan's Second Division dismissed the forfeiture cases filed against former Chief Justice Renato Corona over his assets that were not declared in his statements of liabilities, statements of assets, liabilities, and net worth, or SALN. Corona has been dead for over 6 years after suffering from a heart attack on April 29, 2016. In a decision dated November 3, Sandigan Bayan said the allegations against Corona were, quote-unquote, misplaced, declaring that the questioned assets of the ex-Chief Justice cannot be tagged as unexplained wealth as it were merely not mentioned in his SALN. It can be recalled that in December 2011, Corona was impeached for failing to indicate 180 million pesos worth of his assets in his SALN. This resulted in the Senate acting as an impeachment court to convict Corona in May 2012. After his impeachment, the Bureau of Internal Revenue then filed a tax evasion case against the late Chief Justice as well as his family. His impeachment also even prompted several petitioners to ask the Office of the Ombudsman, then under former Supreme Court Associate Justice Conchita Carpio Morales, to investigate the alleged ill-gotten wealth amounting to more than 130.5 million pesos. However, Sandigan Bayan noted that while Corona may have been liable for negligence as he failed to properly indicate his assets in his SALN, these assets cannot be labeled as unexplained wealth because the former Chief Justice, his wife, and children have legally accumulated wealth over years of working. The court explained that at most, Chief Justice Corona may have been held guilty of simple negligence. However, it was preempted by his death. Sandigan Bayans also exonerated Corona from accusations that the value of the properties he mentioned in his SALN was devalued, saying that the acquisition costs of the properties could always be checked with other documents. Sandigan Bayan likewise noted that assessing the proper value of such properties may not be accurate, which means government officials like Corona could have mistakenly placed original values but not the adjusted figures. According to the Sandigan Bayan, Corona did not enter the Supreme Court as a pauper or a poor person, noting that he and his wife obtained several assets as they worked for high-profile jobs even before taking office. Furthermore, the court also considered the admission that the couple have been putting their money on foreign currency accounts that are much stronger than the Philippine peso and therefore could have a higher interest rate over the years. It even pointed out the Corona couple had been working and saving since the 1960s. With this ruling, the forfeiture cases against Corona's heirs have been similarly dismissed, while the writ of preliminary attachment issued last January 2015 has also been lifted. Back to you.
Zach, can you give us a brief rundown of the case again of former Chief Justice Renato Corona? And you said that he has been dead for over 6 years. So what could this decision mean for him and his family?
Yes, Bay. The forfeiture cases filed against Corona and his families, which was then dismissed by the anti-graft court, was rooted in the allegations of unexplained wealth against Corona for failing to indicate 180 million pesos worth of his assets in his SALN. These said allegations then led to Corona's impeachment in May 2012. More than 10 years later and over 6 years after his death, Sandigan Bayan's Second Division then dismissed these cases, saying that these assets cannot be labeled as unexplained wealth simply because, according to the anti-graft court, Corona and his family have legally accumulated this wealth over years of working. In terms of how it will now affect his family, as stated by the Sandigan Bayan's Second Division in its decision, this said case is filed not just against Corona, but his wife and his heirs have now officially been lifted. With this, all involved or all those subject to the said allegations have been exonerated.
Mhm. That's Zakarian Sarao reporting live. The reported death toll due to severe tropical storm Paeng climbs to 150, according to the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. Jean Mangaluz fills us in with more details. Jean?
Thank you, Bay. According to the latest report from the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, severe tropical storm Paeng has left 150 people dead. Among these reports, 94 people are confirmed dead, while the rest of these deaths are under validation. Nearly half of these casualties came from the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, as it had reported 63 people dead. Calabarzon reported a total of 33 deaths, while Western Visayas had 29 deaths. The number of people affected by Paeng is also nearing 4 million. Around 1.2 million of these people have been displaced, and almost 174,000 are still in evacuation centers. Meanwhile, 36 people are still reportedly missing, while 128 others were injured. Paeng also damaged 367 infrastructures, which includes schools, roads, bridges, and more. The total infrastructure damage now costs around 2.8 billion pesos. At least 154 areas still have unstable power supplies, while 38 others remain without communication lines. Local government units in 292 cities and municipalities across the country have declared a state of calamity. That's it from me,
Jean,
babe. Back to you.
Jean, 150 casualties due to a severe tropical storm. That's not a number that we should take lightly. Has the government addressed questions from the concerned public about possible lapses in the preparations of the government prior to the onslaught of Paeng?
I agree, Bay. These numbers really show Paeng's devastation. The NDRRMC Assistant Secretary Bernardo Alejandro IV recently said that they are not pointing fingers, but they plan to improve how they communicate with local government units during these types of calamities, especially with the government of BARM.
And in these 150 recorded casualties that you mentioned a while ago, did the NDRRMC detail what were the most common causes of the deaths?
Unfortunately, Bay, we still don't have the exact numbers yet because the agency is still validating the reports they received. But based on the data we do have, a lot of these deaths are due to drowning and suffocation caused by floods and landslides.
And Gina, I read somewhere that Paeng is actually the 16th tropical cyclone that hit the Philippines in 2022. And with 2 months left this year, how many more are we expecting?
Well, Bay, according to Pag-asa, we can expect 3 to 5 more tropical cyclones for the remaining part of the year. However, we do need to remember that Pag-asa initially predicted that October will have 2 to 4 tropical cyclones, but we ended up with 5. Tropical Depression Queenie entered our area of responsibility shortly after Paeng wreaked havoc on our country. So it's important to remember that while forecasts are based on data, they can still change with new developments. So it's important to stay informed to stay safe. That's it from eBay. Back to you.
Thank you, Jean. That is Jean Mangaluz reporting live. The Department of Education's policy allowing the optional wearing of masks inside schools would be dangerous to students and teachers, especially for those attending classes in cramped classrooms, according to a party list group representative. In a statement, the Alliance of Concerned Teachers representative Franz Castro said it appears DepEd is removing the bare minimum standard of protection inside educational institutions. That's on top of not providing funds to assist COVID-19 positive teachers and students and to conduct weekly COVID-19 testing in schools. The lawmaker said this a day after DepEd confirmed that school officials would adhere with President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s Executive Order Number 7, which makes the wearing of masks, even in indoor settings, optional. According to Castro, DepEd should at least implement minimum health standards in schools, especially the wearing of face masks, since it cannot provide adequate facilities to implement proper social distancing. Castro believes the lack of health facilities and health professionals in schools, along with ventilation problems, should be addressed first before the government even thinks of going maskless inside schools. Castro also said ensuring a safe school environment not only protects teachers and students from diseases, but also improves the quality of education students receive. The government should bolster its efforts to solve crimes against journalists, according to the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines. NUJP's statement came in light of the maintained ranking of the Philippines as the 7th worst country in prosecuting journalists' murderers. Global Media Watchdog Committee to Protect Journalists reported 14 unsolved killings in the Philippines from September 1, 2012 to August 31, 2022. The group also pointed out that the CPJ Global Impunity Index, published on the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists, became more timely as the government continues its probe on the brazen assassination of radio man vlogger Percival Mabasa, more popularly known as Percy Lapid. NUJP said while they welcome the government's initiatives to engage with journalists and to look into their safety, they hold that the resolution of cases of attacks against fellow media practitioners is one of the best ways to ensure they can report without fear of reprisal. North Korea fired 3 ballistic missiles on Thursday, including 1 long-range and 2 short-range ballistic missiles, according to Seoul's military. 1 ballistic missile prompted warnings from residents of a South Korean island and people in parts of northern Japan to seek shelter. Seoul's military said it had detected 1 long-range ballistic missile believed to be launched into the Sea of Japan around 7:10 a.m. in the morning in the Sunan area of Pyongyang. Shortly after, 2 short-range ballistic missiles were also fired at around 8:39 a.m. from Gaechan's South Pyongan province. Following the said launches, residents of South Korea's eastern island of Ulleungdo and the northern region of Japan were warned to seek shelter. The launches happened a day after Pyongyang fired more than 20 missiles, including one that landed near South Korea's territorial waters. The multiple missile launches comes as Seoul and Washington are staging their largest ever joint air drills with hundreds of warplanes. South Korea's military is said to be currently maintaining full readiness, strengthening surveillance and vigilance while in close cooperation with the United States. Alamin naman natin ang mainit na balita sa mundo ng showbiz kasama si Pauline Del Rosario ng Bandera. Pauline?
Hello, Bay, at sa ating mga kabandera natin all over the universe. Ito na nga ang latest chika. Nagkaroon ng komplikasyon dahil sa COVID-19 ang Star of All Seasons at dating politician na si Vilma Santos.
Yan ang ibinunyag ng veteranang aktres kasabay ng kanyang birthday ngayong araw. Sa isang Facebook post, sinabi ni Ate V na na-diagnose siya ng tinatawag na long COVID. Paliwanag pa niya, negatibo siya sa virus pero hanggang ngayon ay nakakaranas pa rin siya ng mga sintomas gaya ng asthma attack, fluctuating blood pressure at sakit ng ulo. Dahil dyan, nagpaalala si Vilma sa publiko na patuloy na mag-ingat dahil laganap pa rin ang COVID-19 sa bansa.
Kahit na ano na pong ingat ang gawin ko, nakuha pa rin ako ng COVID. So, gusto ko lamang po ipaalala sa inyong lahat, please, please, COVID is still here. At lalo na po sa mga katulad ko po na sa mga edad ko, na mga senior, you really have to be careful. Hindi po talaga madali. Miski po ako nahirapan and I'm trying my very best still to get well at this point in time.
At yan ang latest bandera chika natin. Thank you, Bay!
Maraming salamat, Pauline. And these are the stories you need to know today. I'm Beatrice Pinlac. Follow INQUIRER.net on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit. For more stories, visit INQUIRER.net.